that 3 to 4 hour block for me is really a time for me to brainstorm. It's a time for me to decompress. It's a time for me to look big picture and assess what's working, what's not. It's also the time for me to kind of get creative, new programs, new ideas. Like, do you have space for new things to even enter the conversation of your business? Hello and welcome to the Better Than Rich Show. I'm your host, Andrew Biggs. I'm here with my co-host, as always, Mike Abramowitz. Mike, how's it going today?
It's going good. Just getting back from the gym, feeling accomplished already. So
that's good. It's the best way to start the day, right? That's fantastic. Nice. I saw your post on your numbers, and you did your assessment. It looks like there's some progress. So that's always
just
fun.
Finished my 100th workout for the year. So
there you go.
I wanted to see how I'm doing.
Basically, you're trending towards almost 200 for the year. Then that's awesome. So, well, cool, man. Well, hey, I'm excited to dive in today and just talk about our topic. One of the things that we were, discussing early on is the difference between being a business operator and being a business owner, right? And there's just so many people that we see who get into business and they think it's the American dream, right? They're like, oh, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be, make millions and millions of dollars. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to have time freedom. I'm going to have money freedom. I'm going to have exactly the life that I want to live. And they get into it and they escape the 9 to 5, right, Mike? Only to work the 24/7, if you know what I mean. And they've kind of, instead of actually being a business owner, what they've done is they've actually just put themselves into their business and they're kind of this essential cog in the machine. And so they're an operator, not an owner. And so we're excited today to talk about the power of becoming an owner versus an operator and how to work on your business instead of in your business. So that's kind of the tee up. I'm going to kick it to you and just kind of, where do you want to jump off? And then we obviously have some points that we want to make to you, the listener here today, to help you become more of a business owner rather than a business operator. But Mike, what comes up for you?
Well, why this is so relevant for me right now is I take my personal days on Monday. I've been doing this for several years now, but this Monday specifically, I told my wife, and obviously we have James, and he's on a ventilator and on oxygen and whatnot. I'm like, I need to leave my phone here. I know it's against policy of the household. Like, we always have to have our phone just in case there's an emergency, because those happen pretty often. But I'm like, I need to leave my phone. I trust the universe. I trust everything will be okay, but I need 7 hours. So from like 10 or 11 a.m. until about 5 or 6 p.m., I cannot have my phone near me. I just need to unwind my mind and leave the phone. And just to be able to do that, because I have the different plates that I spin, I needed to avoid distraction. And this is why this is relevant, is because during that time, in 7 hours, I went to reach for my phone, like physically went into my pocket or went onto my dash where I keep my phone at least 15 to 20 times. Like, at minimum, went actually physically to grab my phone. When I went to renew my gym membership, went to grab my calendar because he wanted to set up a personal training thing. I was like, oh, I don't have my phone. When I was negotiating the terms at the gym, went to pull out my phone for my calculator. I was like, oh, I don't have my phone. I can't do my calculations. When I went to eat, I ate. I went to the OG Olive Garden and ate, and I went to track my macros in my Fitness Pal. I didn't have my phone on me. So they were like, it wasn't just business, but it was just this addiction to this tool that I became so dependent on. And I realized just during that day, and I've known this for a while, but it's so relevant to me right now, is at one point, after I ate, I went and I brought a lawn chair with me. I posted up on USF campus underneath this beautiful tree right near a little pond. There was probably 3 dozen ducks, and I just sat there. I sat there for at least 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours, doing absolutely nothing. And then at one point, I grabbed my journal. Didn't write. I wrote a little bit. At one point, I grabbed the book I'm reading, Blue Ocean Strategy. I read a little bit and just sat there, read, journaled, sat, and I just felt so much lighter. And then I treated myself to an ice cream cone on my way home.
Sounds like a rich, full day.
And hey, but I was able to come back and show up and have some good creative conversations on Tuesday and be able to be a little bit more present inside the business, and seeing some relationships that I know need working on. So we will obviously navigate through that. But the idea of unplugging and the idea of unattaching a little bit for several hours is just so powerful. I don't think enough business owners are doing that. So that's where a lot of the inspiration for this is coming from.
Correct. And so what Mike's kind of speaking to, and kind of the main idea here is like, sometimes we actually use the analogy forest through the trees, right? Like, you can't actually see the forest for the trees. And so you're kind of like wandering through, and you think you have a piece of your puzzle in your business, or you think you have a piece of the puzzle in your life, but it's so disconnected from the rest of it, right? That you actually don't have a kind of really good perspective of what's going on. When we're so close to something, it's very hard to really tell what we're looking at. And so, what the concept of working on your business instead of in your business, what the concept of working on your life instead of in your life, it's a different modality, it's a different quality of energy that we're going to bring to that is much more of a bird's eye view, right? We're looking from this higher level perspective, and what happens when we zoom out, we're able to see the whole picture. And so the power of what Mike's mentioning there, and we're going to talk about practical ways to actually weave this into your life. If you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, there's no way I could be away from my phone for 7 hours, that's crazy, right? Well, maybe you could. And if it's not 7 hours, what's that look like for you? And how do we weave it in? And maybe you can graduate up to that with time once you implement a lot of the things that we're going to talk about. So, that's really the power of this, right? And all the time, we really like to hold retreats. We like to encourage our clients to strategically retreat. Sometimes it's with us, sometimes it's just on their own. But just to create special spaces, right? Like, do you have a habit? Do you have a process? Do you have a ritual where every so often you have sacred spaces set aside, right? Mike mentioned Mondays is his personal day, right? A lot of times for me, it's Fridays. But it's like, what is it for you? Where do you have like special space, either weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly, annually? How do you look at that? I think probably each, like every single day needs an hour, every single week needs a day, every single month, right, needs a weekend, right? Or every single quarter needs a weekend, and every single year needs a week where you are just disconnecting and going big picture and looking at your life. Are you loving it? Are you thrilled with how things are going, or are you not? And if you're not, why? And what can you do about it to actually put a plan together? So, Mike, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I really like what you just said. Every day needs an hour. Every week needs a couple hours, whatever it might be. But it's so true. Protecting that time. Some people, we have the episode on morning and evening rituals. Some people protect that 30 minutes before bed and 30 minutes after they wake up or whatever it is. But having that sacred time where you're not in reaction mode, where you could just observe the thoughts or release the thoughts, or just look at the macro level versus the micro level of your business, of your life. It's not only a good idea, it's necessary. It is like mandatory in my mind, because we're constantly in reaction mode inside of our business, and putting out fires. Like a couple years ago, before I met you and you taught me a lot of the business system stuff. Shoot, that's all I would do, man. It was just like nonstop reaction mode, like my staff's burdens of whatever was going on with them, breakups with their significant other, or family drama, or whatever it is. And they would bring that stuff to me. And then I was dating Lindsay at the time, and I'd be like, gosh, like I just feel drained. I don't even want to talk to you right now. Like, I don't even want to listen right now. It's not, I love you. And I just like, I'm just so fried right now. And it was just so consuming, and it's just not a healthy way of operating a life or operating a business. It's not. So I love that. An hour for the day, and a couple hours for the week, maybe a day for the month. I really like that idea.
Absolutely. And so, just to start making this practical for you, the listener, it's like, okay, one of the things you have to be thinking about is time management. It's one of the core basic strategies of personal growth. Everybody knows it, right, quote unquote. But are you doing it right? And do you actually have an optimized calendar? And you got to look at your day, but also you got to look at your week. You got to look at your month and your quarter and your year. And do you have dedicated time in your calendar every morning, every evening for these sorts of things, to put the phone away? one of the general rules that I have is at least 30 minutes in the morning, don't look at the phone, right? And if you want to turn that into a super productive meditation session, you want to turn that into a journal session, you want to turn that into, a workout or a manifestation visualization session, whatever you want to do, that's great. Also, if you want to stumble into the kitchen and make yourself a cup of coffee and walk on the porch and just look at the sunrise, like that's cool too. But at the very least, don't look at your phone. Okay. Like, please, please, please do not do it, because what you're doing is you're instantly getting triggered. You're instantly at effect, right? Rather than at cause. You're instantly responding to all the things. I mean, when I wake up, there's at least 25, 30 pieces of communication sitting there waiting on my phone from different people. Okay. Right. Sometimes it's from you, Mike. Right. And it's like, and I'm sure like vice versa. Right. It's like Andrew's texting me, Mike's texting me. Like, that's normal though, right? When you're in business, there's all sorts of communication constantly flying through. Yesterday I was on a phone call with a woman in Belgium. I just made a sale with a woman in Sweden. Like, people are working all over the world, right? We have a VA team in the Philippines. Like, when you start to run a business, communication is constantly coming through. And the question is, when are you shutting off? When are you actually taking care of yourself? And then deciding, like, I'm going to be at cause, and I'm going to enforce my will on my day, right? I'm not going to just succumb to other people's wills, right? Now, there's some negotiation in there, right? Because you have partnerships, you have relationships that you need to maintain. But you need to make sure you're clear on what you need to get out of the day, and then go forth and negotiate that with your business partner, with your significant other, with your clients. So, Mike, what's coming up for you?
Well, the first word that immediately shows up is boundaries. You need to create boundaries around what is important to you. So if we're encouraging you to make strategic time for yourself a priority, then you can create boundaries around creating strategic time for yourself. So how do you create those boundaries? Well, you want to think about, what are the days or the hours of the days that make the most sense, where you could see, hey, maybe there's a little bit of a dip in efficiency. Maybe I'll miss a couple of phone calls. Maybe I won't be able to respond as fast. But what are those pockets of time that you could start with? So it's like, all right, what are the pockets of time that have the least amount of consequence? That's where it might start. In my business, Mondays made the most sense. So in my life, Mondays made the most sense. So it's like, you can put it together. Also, where are the pockets of time that are most productive, that need to be protected? For me, for my life and for my business, it was Tuesday through Thursday from 10 to 4. Those are the pockets of time that's like, I need to make sure that I'm in the zone during those times. So I started with, what are the pockets of time that have the least amount of consequence, and what are the pockets of time that need me to be as most present and productive as possible? That was a place that I started. And then I was able to build some stuff around that, build my morning rituals and my gym routines and my personal days and family time and stuff around that little bit of a shell that I just alluded to.
Awesome. And so we've kind of talked about how to do this in the daily form. Let's zoom out a little bit. How do we do this in a weekly form or maybe in a longer term form? One of the things that you mentioned is having a day a week, and if it can't be a day, a lot of times for me, it's like a 3-4 hour block of time is really good. I find that if it's less, it's hard to get into like what I would almost call like a creative flow, right? And I think, again, working on your business instead of in your business really means thinking strategically, like looking at the big picture. And sometimes that means you're kind of accessing a different part of your brain, right? There's like the left brain, right, which is like, okay, I'm very, very organized and focused, and it's the one that's actually really pinpointing on the details and discriminating yes to this, no to that, and it's kind of in the action mode, right? And then the right brain is more creative. It sees the big picture. It connects to all those things. It's more abstract. So most of us are kind of spending most of our time in the left brain, and hey, fair enough, because we have things to do, and you have a to-do list, and you got shit to do, and you got to get the kids to school, and you got your boss is expecting you at a certain time, or that email needs to be sent to that client, and it's like, all right, cool. Like, great. Let's do that. Let's be in that mode. But if we're always in that mode, again, we're not going to be as productive as we could be. And we're going to, get to the top of the mountain only to realize it was the wrong mountain. So when we did like step aside that 3 to 4 hour block for me, is really a time for me to brainstorm. It's a time for me to decompress. It's a time for me to look big picture and assess what's working, what's not. It's also the time for me to kind of get creative, new programs, new ideas. Like, would you have space for new things to even enter the conversation of your business? If you're listening to this, you're not 100% thrilled with your business. I can tell you that right now. No business owner who's worth their salt is 100% satisfied with their business. So what time do you have for new ideas to even enter the conversation? Because if you don't have any time, why would you expect your business to change? Why would you expect it to grow? Right. And that's really the power of setting that aside. So for me, it's a lot of times Fridays. For you, it's Mondays. But when is the time where you are going to step aside and have at least a block of time where you're disconnecting from the day to day and the kind of the quick communication back and forth and really thinking strategically?
And this Monday specifically, when I was at the OG eating at the Olive Garden, I had my journal. So I read from March until this Monday. So I read just the past, just to kind of reflect. So that's an idea that you could do, is if you feel like you're stuck and you can't have strategy, go. So I just reflected. I would say, let me just reflect. And from reflection, I got inspiration. And that inspiration, just to share with you, I was able to, the questions that, I'm not going to give you all the answers because, you got to wait and see what happens. But the questions I was able to pose is, what are even more value adds that I can offer to my clients? And I was able to come up, that was a question, and made a whole list of a half a page of value adds we could offer, and I can offer to clients, and we could offer at Better Than Rich. Another one, what is an even more ideal use of our virtual assistant team? That was a question that I asked, and then I strategized and have a whole half a page of notes on what I could do better. The next question was, what can I do for my game changer business to automate even more our front end funnel? And then I, did a whole workshop on that, and then did the same thing for Better Than Rich. And what I came up with is a really cool idea for game changers. Obviously, a couple other ideas for Better Than Rich, but one for my game changer business is starting before their prospects. So, for example, we recruit like 17 to 22-year-olds. So one of the ideas was, how can I start adding value to the 16-year-olds and adding value to them, so that way when they do turn 17, 18, 19, we already have some sort of relationship. So instead of just sending them a message saying, hey, do you want to work with us? Sending a message, say, hey, I have this blank free PDF or this video course or something like that can help you transition from the classroom to the business arena. Would you like it? Get an opt-in, and then start marketing to them between the ages of 16 to 18. So by the time they're ready to become an actual prospect, there's a relationship established. Isn't that what a lot of businesses do for their customers anyway? But I haven't really thought of that before in my game changer recruiting operation, because, well, it just dawned on me right now, or on Monday, because that's essentially where the inspiration. So the idea of reflection to create space for inspiration, the idea of reflection to create space for strategy to exist. That's just an example. I give you a shit ton of examples. The entire virtual assistant program came from a Monday of reflection, and now we have, a dozen and a half clients who are extremely grateful that idea came from reflection and inspiration, right? So it's just that's my 2 cents on your what you said.
Correct. And just to point to that, it's like, why hasn't that dropped in before? It's like, there's a long story, right, in your business, and, because you're kind of like a franchise. It's like, well, that's, no one's ever done that before, right? That's the way we've always done it. And it's like, well, yeah, exactly. Right. But if we keep doing exactly what, it has always been done, we'll always get the same result. So, and same goes for you, the listener. So I think that's really powerful. We look at the day, we look at the week. What about longer term, right? We hosted an event in last November where we had 20 or so people come out to Playa del Carmen area, Mexico. We did some incredible deep dive in their lives, really looking at their vision, looking at their purpose, overcoming limiting beliefs, breakthroughs around relationships, breakthroughs in so many different capacities around, their energy and their commitment to their vision, really getting clear on what they wanted to accomplish in 2022. We went to did some diving in some cenotes. We went zip lining. We did all sorts of cool stuff. We saw some ancient Mayan ruins, and then in March we had about 20 people come out to our more business focused event, right? And they took 3 days away from their business, right? And we encouraged them as much as possible in Mexico and in Tampa to put the phones away, right? We even have like a little phone place where it's like, hey, this is optional, but if you want to put your phone in the phone bowl, right, then go ahead and do it. And if you want to check it on breaks, you can, but we're just going to encourage you as much as possible to step away from the phone. And so in Tampa, we had 20 or so folks come and work on their business and learn strategies and learn new systems and new ways to implement stuff in their business that's going to revolutionize it. And we're seeing so many huge wins, right? From people learning what they learned and then going back and implementing it into their business. So, what's the power of that from your perspective, Mike? I'd love to hear you talk about why do we have these sort of times to strategically retreat, and why would somebody, again, whether it's with us or with someone else, spend the time, spend the money, take the energy, take the flight, whatever, to come out and actually, fully be away from their business for a few days?
Well, it started with me 2012. I went to my first Tony Robbins event, and that was 2012, 2013, walked across the fire, UPW. And like, that was the first time I did real retreat away from the business and away from life for a little bit. And, it was about a week. I ended up taking off because the event was 4 days. And then I was actually more because I stayed in LA for a couple extra days to reflect and journal. And then I flew from LA and went to my brother's house in Mexico for another 5 or 6 days. So it was an extended trip that I ended up doing. But the idea there was so many birthplaces of things that came through, including Grab Tomorrow, including speaking to the schools, including PB&J for Tampa Bay. Those are 3 big initiatives that showed up for me from that retreat in 2012, 2013. Then you fast forward to like 2017, 2018, when I went to San Francisco for the full immersion with you, to learn a little bit more about who I am and what I want to do and who I want to become. And well, that transitioned into becoming a father. That was where the birthplace of, I said, I'm committed to becoming a dad. And I made the decision there. I remember I was partnered up with Brett Mullen, and I was like, I think I'm ready, man. Like, you're the first person that I'm going to tell. Like, I was nervous as hell, but I'm done with knighthood and I'm ready to transition into Prince. And I am ready to become a dad. Now is like that 2017 range. Then we started trying as a family. So that was a commitment that I made to start setting up my business in a way. It's like, I got to think differently. I got to think more strategically. Then 2019 went to a retreat in New York where you taught this business systemization to say, holy shit, like I got to remove myself from the business day to day and figure out how to set that up. So these are just ideas of what have just 3 examples in my life where those strategic retreats invested thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours to disconnect in order to reconnect. And that reconnection has yielded more time and more money and more resources into my life. So that's what immediately shows up.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so it's like when you are giving yourself this opportunity. I mean, so much of us are in high stress situations a lot of times, right? We don't like to admit it, but like stress is a reality, right? And I get it. There's some good stressors out there. I'm not saying all stress is bad, but what I am saying is being in high stress consistently is not good, right? You're burning up your energetic resources, right? You're kind of rewiring your brain in a strange way, right? That is hard to recover from, right? Because you're basically kind of like on high alert. You're in fight or flight a lot, and so that just causes that sort of cortisol levels to rise. And if you spend too much time in cortisol, you're just like bathing your brain in cortisol all the time, right? It can dramatically it can shrink your brain and increase the size of your amygdala. That's what the research shows. So it's like, hello, that's a pretty big deal, right? Do you want to, I'd much rather decrease the size of my amygdala and increase the size of my brain. That sounds like a winning combination for me. So if you're constantly in high stress, right? Because maybe that's the way you've set up your life, right? Maybe that's how you've set up your relationship. Maybe that's how you've set up, your your business. Maybe that's how you've set up, how you interact with the marketplace and with clients. And, you kind of have a story that I always need to be going. I always need to be stressed. Sometimes we're like, I need this to be hard. Like making money is hard. Being a business owner is hard. What if it doesn't have to be anymore? Like, have you ever even stopped to consider that question? What if this was easy? What if I could make it easy? How might I make it easy? And just ask different questions. And so that's what we do when we take time to strategically retreat, to go out for 2, 3 days, learn from Mike and myself, or, learn from somebody else like Tony Robbins or anybody who's in the marketplace who runs retreats like this. That's a really, really smart move. Even if you're not going to go learn from somebody and be surrounded by an amazing community, although I think that that's probably the best use of your dollars, you could also just take like a personal day or take a personal weekend. Mike, you introduced me to the concept of the Mancation, right? I'll let you talk about that for a second, but just this like strategic retreat for yourself, and like get a hotel room and just do what you need to do to decompress and get clear. What's the Mancation, Mike?
The Mancation is exactly that, just a time for me to do whatever I need to do, to get away from anything, and to get, like I said, to disconnect, to reconnect. So it's started, I don't even know where it started, but a couple of examples were, when I got a hotel, I was like, reached my wits ends. Like things were good. We were number one in my business. There were things were really good. We just made over 400 grand, for the year. Is like things are just popping off, and I'm like, gosh, I am just drained. I'm tired. I'm fatigued. Like things are really, really tough. And I got to just get away for a little bit, and I just got a hotel, and just journaled and reflected, and did a little bit of what I just mentioned. And then there was another one. I went to a dude ranch. I was like, all right, I want to just take 3 days and get away. And I was like, what do I want to do? What, do I want to go to the mountains? Whatever. I was like, I'm going to just go ride horses for a little bit. So I went and found a dude ranch in Florida and drove out to the middle of nowhere, and rode a couple horses, rode bicycles, ate and slept a ton. And that's all I realized. I realized I was so tired. I read hundreds of pages. Grabbed all my old journals and reflected a ton, asked myself a bunch of questions. And then I got really bored, so bored that I ended up going home a half a day early just because I was so bored. I didn't need that much time to just rejuvenate. I was just tired. So the idea of is to rejuvenate. So what I would encourage you to listener is, it doesn't have to, if it could be a womancation too, a womancation or a mancation. But the idea is, do you know what rejuvenates you? Do you know what your recharge is? For me, what recharges me is a little bit of reflection, some perspective. So reflecting to my past journals, perspective, reading new books, and sleeping. A lot of fucking sleep sometimes is all I need. I just need to sleep. And I slept 14 hours in one of those nights at the dude ranch. I was like, holy crap, I was just tired. And that's sometimes all we need, is just a space to just shut down, and not have to think. And at one point I just floated in a pool. I literally would just hold my breath and just see how long I could hold my breath and just float. And then I would catch my breath and I would float some more. It was like being a little kid again, like a little kid. Let's see how old and I did this by myself in a swimming pool. These are just a couple of examples of what I do on my mancation.
That's great, man. I love that. So, so if you're listening, think about ideas like this. I'm also sympathetic to the listener, and Mike, I think we should speak to this before we, close for the day. But it's like, what do we have to say to what I call the yeah buts? It's like, hey, what you guys are saying sounds great, but yeah, I'd love to get away from my business, but you don't understand my situation. My situation is so much different than your situation and your client's situation. Like my life is unmanageable, and it's so unique and it's so special, and it's not like anything that you guys are talking about. What would you say to someone who says, man, I admire what you guys are doing, but it's just not going to work for me. You don't understand the complexity of my life and how stressful my life is and how stressful my business is. What would you have to say to that listener right now, sitting in their car or you're walking on the treadmill, wherever they are? What do you have to say?
Well, I would ask, is that just a season you're in, or is that how it is? And those are two different things. So if you think it's a global belief that that's just how it is, I would challenge that. If you're in that season, that's probably a winter season. And we've talked about this on past episodes. It's just a season. There's 3 ways to approach your winter season. Number one, go shovel the snow and fatigue your ass off. And then as soon as spring comes around, you're going to be too fucking tired to do any creative work or do any seed planting in spring because you've been shoveling the winter so much. Option two, go grab the skis and sled and enjoy that son of a bitch as much as you can and enjoy the snow and turn it into a gift. And option number three is that's when you can nuzzle up by the fire and say, I'm tired anyway, and I'm beating my head against the wall. I'm not getting that many results regardless. So let me take a step back so I could take 2 steps forward. Let me just take this time to do the minimum viable product, which is what is the minimum that can move me forward out of this winter season. If they're just skeptic, well, I mean, then I would invite you to get some perspective. I would invite you to say, what is possible? Become a person of possibility. What might it look like? Think in those terms. Andrew said, life responds to the questions you ask of it. So if you're asking yourself a shitty question of like, yeah, but will that really work for me? That's a shitty question. The better question is, how can I make this work for me? What are the boundaries that need to be in place? Who, not how. That's a great book somewhere over here, right here. Who, not how. By Dan Sullivan. It's like, who do I need to attract into my life that can do some of the things that are taking so much of my energy so I can free me up to do some of the things. I'm sure I was a who for Andrew Biggs. Andrew's like, who can I bring into Better Than Rich that can potentially open up more revenue for the company and more time for myself? Mike is one of my best clients. Maybe I should, and he's really handsome and funny and smart. And Mike is just really all around great
all
guy.
All those things.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's like, I was Andrew's who. So who's your who? Who's your who that you could attract into your life and your business that can open up some of your time, some of your freedoms, to make sure that you're asking better questions. That's my rant immediately.
I love it. And what I would just add to that is everything Mike said, especially the handsome and talented part, mostly. What I would say is everything that Mike said, and at some point you got to kind of bite the bullet, even if it does kind of hurt you in the short term. Like, nobody's like, if you lose a client because you took 3 hours on a Friday to get clear on your personal vision and your vision for your business and strategically think about what new things you need to do, and that costs you a client, that you were supposed to lose that client. Right? If some sort of thing happens like that, and someone's really upset that you weren't on your phone at 6 a.m. in the morning, then maybe that's not the perfect person for you to be in a business relationship with anyway. And things need to reorganize. So sometimes we have to let some certain things die, right? Sometimes we have to fire our clients, if you will, right? Or at least let them kind of attrition out and churn out because they aren't aligned for where we're headed anyway. And so if you're listening to this and you have that yeah, but energy or that yeah, but story, ask yourself more empowering questions. How might I incorporate the power of strategic retreat? How might I become a business owner instead of a business operator? Who do I need to talk to? Do I need leadership and mentorship from Better Than Rich? Do I need to hire someone beneath me? Do I need to displace some of my tasks to a VA team? Do I need to systemize and optimize our internal SOPs so everything flows together and I'm fighting less fires? Do I need to embrace the power of technology and automation? There's so many answers when we start asking the right questions. So that's what we're going to leave you with here today. This has really been a pleasure, Mike. I really enjoyed this episode, and I really want to encourage every single person listening to ask yourself, how can I go from being a business operator to a business owner? Because that's the reason you got into business in the first place. Thank you all for spending this time here with us together today. And until next week, remember to leave today better than you found it. We'll see you later. Bye.